Mine's bigger than that.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, my cucumber. It's bigger.
Remember that one film every studio in Hollywood rejected before Universal finally said yes? The one that changed college life across an entire generation? The real story behind it is something nobody ever fully told you. One actor worked 3 days and left $14 million on the table. Another was dead at 33. A teenage girl starred in 2 classics, then vanished completely. No photos, no interviews, no trace. 40 years of silence. Something deeply unbelievable was happening behind every single frame of Animal House. If you are new here, welcome, and hit subscribe before this video ends. Every week we bring you the real, untold stories of Hollywood's most iconic stars, where they came from, what destroyed them, and what they became. This is exactly what this channel is built for. John Belushi as Bluto Blutarski. The studio offered him $35,000, and he was already the biggest star on the most-watched comedy show in America. That number alone tells you everything about how seriously Universal took this film. Born in Wheaton, Illinois on January 24, 1949, the son of Albanian immigrants who built everything from absolutely nothing, John Belushi had dragged himself from Chicago's Second City Comedy Club all the way to Saturday Night Live, where he became the most explosive and unpredictable performer on any screen in the country.
Some of my funniest memories are of just watching John Belushi at work and watching, the relationship between him.
Nobody else on that show moved the way he moved or hit the way he hit. And yet Universal handed him $35,000 like he was a complete unknown.
But once it got out in theaters, the movie was John Belushi's.
He took it without a single argument, packed his bags, drove to Eugene, Oregon, and threw himself into Bluto Blutarski like his entire life depended on it. What nobody on that set knew was that he was secretly flying back to New York every single week, filming Animal House Monday through Wednesday, boarding a plane Thursday, performing Saturday Night Live live on Friday and Saturday, then flying straight back to the set Sunday morning. He did this for the entire shoot without one complaint. Then the cafeteria scene arrived and changed everything, because it was never once in the script. He walked in, piled his tray impossibly high, stuffed mashed potatoes into his cheeks, and screamed,
I'm a zit. Get it?
Nobody knew it was coming. Every stunned face around him was completely genuine. After Animal House came the Blues Brothers in 1980, and a level of fame that was becoming impossible to survive. On March 5th, 1982, his trainer arrived at his Chateau Marmont bungalow and found him dead on the floor at 33 years old. Kathy Smith was convicted of involuntary manslaughter for the fatal injection. The last 2 people to see him alive were Robert De Niro and Robin Williams, and neither of them could save him. Tim Matheson as Eric Otter Stratton. Every story he had ever heard about John Belushi pointed toward the same thing, an out-of-control ego that would consume every scene and make everyone around him completely invisible.
Two.
I didn't get that, son. What was that?
I said, what a shame that a few bad apples have to spoil a good time.
Born in Glendale, California on December 31, 1947, Tim Matheson had been a professional working actor since the age of 13, voicing Johnny Quest, appearing in Leave It to Beaver and My Three Sons, and he had dealt with enough difficult personalities across his career to recognize immediately the difference between someone who needed to dominate every room and someone who genuinely showed up to give everything they had.
If there's anything I can do.
I really should impose on you.
No, really. Anything.
I just don't think I should be alone tonight. Would you go out with me?
I'll get my coat.
He walked onto that Eugene, Oregon set fully braced for the worst professional experience of his life. What he found instead completely dismantled every single expectation he had carried through that door. Belushi never once tried to upstage anyone around him. He listened when others spoke. He quietly encouraged his castmates when they got something right. He and his wife arrived in Eugene and could not have been more warm or grounded with everyone they met. Matheson wrote about all of it in his 2024 memoir, describing Belushi as the complete opposite of his public reputation and one of the most genuinely generous performers he had ever shared a set with. But there was one night off camera that nobody who lived through it ever forgot. The cast crashed a real University of Oregon fraternity party, and within minutes, Matheson was hitting on a frat brother's girlfriend. The room turned hostile in seconds. James Widows threw a cup of beer at a football player and 300 fraternity brothers came pouring down the stairs. Matheson ended up on all fours on the front lawn being kicked in the head. McGill took a black eye. Widows lost teeth. That one terrifying night bonded them more powerfully than 32 days of filming ever could. As of 2026, Tim Matheson is 78 years old and still working. Karen Allen as Katie. The cameras had barely stopped rolling on Animal House when a rare and dangerous eye disease struck her so severely that doctors were genuinely uncertain whether she would ever be able to work again. Born in Carrollton, Illinois on October 5, 1951, the daughter of an FBI agent, Karen Allen had trained rigorously at both the Fashion Institute of Technology and the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute before John Landis cast her as Katie, her very first film role in her entire life. The condition was called keratoconjunctivitis, and it hit her almost immediately after filming wrapped, threatening everything she had just started building before it had even properly begun. It subsided.
And Peter and I read together, and I think I was very nervous, and I felt as though I had given a terrible audition.
And then Steven Spielberg called, and that single phone call changed the entire direction of her life. It led directly to Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981 and Marion Ravenwood, a character so completely beloved that fans refused to accept any Indiana Jones film without her presence for the next 27 years. She won the Saturn Award for Best Actress and became a genuine household name practically overnight. Then she made a choice that almost no actress at that level in that era ever dared to make. She walked deliberately and quietly away from the Hollywood machine, committed herself to stage work, and after the birth of her son in 1990, chose raising him over chasing roles, without one single word of apology to the industry that had made her famous. In 2003, she opened Karen Allen Fiber Arts in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, designing and selling cashmere knitwear entirely by hand. Fans eventually pulled her back for Indiana Jones in 2008 and again in 2023. As of 2026, Karen Allen is 74 years old and building things Hollywood never once taught her how to make. Stephen Furst as Kent Flounder Dorfman. He was delivering pizzas across Hollywood with his headshot stuffed inside the boxes, and he genuinely believed that one day someone would open a lid, find his face staring back at them, and make the call that changed everything. Born Stephen Nelson Feuerstein in Norfolk, Virginia on May 8, 1954, Stephen Furst had no agent, no industry connections, and no clear path forward into the business he wanted desperately to be part of. Just a photograph inside a cardboard box and the stubborn belief that it would eventually reach the right person. Then one of those boxes landed in front of National Lampoon producer Maddie Simmons, who opened the lid, pulled out the headshot, looked at the face staring back at him, and picked up the phone. What was hiding underneath that improbable story was a tragedy that had been following Stephen Furst since he was just 16 years old. Both of his parents died from diabetes complications, within weeks of each other, leaving him alone with the disease already running through his own blood. He reached over 300 pounds, battled completely uncontrolled diabetes for decades, and came within days of losing his left foot before fighting back hard enough to save it. Then his kidneys failed entirely, and he survived only because a devoted Babylon 5 fan heard about his condition and donated a kidney to keep him alive. A complete stranger gave him an organ so he could keep living. He starred in Saint Elsewhere for 5 seasons, built a deeply loyal following through Babylon 5, and spent years as a public spokesperson for the American Diabetes Association, turning his own suffering into something that helped other people. On June 16, 2017, Stephen Furst died at home in Moore Park, California, from diabetes complications at 63 years old. The disease that had taken both his parents had finally and quietly come for him too. Sarah Holcomb as Clarette DePasto. She starred in 2 of the biggest comedies Hollywood had ever produced, and then disappeared so completely that nobody outside her own family has seen her face in over 40 years. Born in Connecticut on September 11, 1958, Sarah Holcomb was just 18 years old when John Landis cast her in Animal House, playing a character even younger than herself in scenes that made the studio genuinely uncomfortable from the moment they read the script. She was already cast in Jaws 2 before Animal House had even released to the public, and every single door in Hollywood was swinging wide open for her at the same time. Everything pointed toward a long and extraordinary career ahead of her. Animal House exploded at the box office, and her name was suddenly on everyone's lips. She appeared in Walk Proud in 1979, then landed Caddyshack in 1980, alongside Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and Rodney Dangerfield, holding her own against the biggest comedy names in the business at just 22 years old. The whole industry was watching her and waiting for whatever she would do next. Then, she was simply gone. Not a slow fade, not a string of smaller roles trailing quietly off into nothing. One day she was there, and the next, she was not. Co-writer Chris Miller told the New York Post the truth years later. Fast crowd, drugs everywhere, bad company, and a young woman who got completely destroyed before anyone could reach her. Reports of schizophrenia began circulating. She was institutionalized for a period. A 2004 film called Stateside, about an actress destroyed by mental illness, is widely believed to be based directly on her story. As of 2026, Sarah Holcomb is believed to be living quietly in Connecticut under a different name. Nobody has seen her since 1980. Tom Hulce as Larry Pinto Kroger. John Landis auditioned over 800 people for this film, and then chose the one actor who did not even know what the word scale meant when the casting director said it. Born in Whitewater, Wisconsin on December 6, 1953, Tom Hulce came straight from serious Broadway theater training with zero film experience and walked into that audition room carrying the kind of genuine nervous energy that no amount of coaching could manufacture. When the casting director told him he would be receiving scale, he genuinely had no idea what that meant. He quietly assumed they might be weighing him before filming started. He was that completely new to everything happening around him. That raw, authentic anxiety became the exact quality that made Pinto the most believable character in the entire film. The one freshman still genuinely shocked by everything exploding around him. But what came 6 years later is what truly makes Tom Hulce's story one of the most remarkable in this entire cast. In 1984, he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for playing Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in Amadeus, one of the most demanding and celebrated dramatic performances of the entire decade. The same actor who stuffed his face in a college cafeteria was suddenly being called one of the finest performers of his generation by the most respected critics in the world. He also voiced Quasimodo in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, reaching an entirely new generation who had no idea he had ever been inside a frat house. Then, at the absolute peak of his career, he made a decision almost nobody in Hollywood ever chooses. He walked away completely, returned to theater, and began directing stage productions entirely on his own terms. As of 2026, Tom Hulce is 72 years old, and exactly where he always wanted to be. Martha Smith as Barbara Babs Jansen. She walked into the wrong audition, and it turned out to be the best mistake she ever made. Born in Cleveland, Ohio on October 16, 1952, Martha Smith was a genuine overachiever long before Hollywood ever noticed her existence. Honor student, listed in Who's Who of American Students, enrolled at Michigan State University at just 17 years old to study psychology. Then, a Playboy Scout spotted her on campus. She became Miss July 1973, and the modeling world pulled her completely off the academic path she had been building so carefully before she ever had the chance to finish her degree. She eventually made her way into acting and landed a screen test for General Hospital. Steady work, guaranteed exposure, and exactly the kind of long-term security that every young actress in Hollywood was desperately chasing at that time. Then she walked into that audition room and forgot every single line she had prepared. Every word gone. That one humiliating blank moment sent her straight to the audition for what she openly called that silly college comedy that would never amount to anything. And she told co-star Mark Metcalf those exact words decades later while laughing about it. After Animal House, she starred in Days of Our Lives and then spent 4 full seasons as spy agent Francine Desmond on Scarecrow and Mrs. King, alongside Kate Jackson. Then, in the early 1990s, she packed everything and moved to France. No scandal, no breakdown, simply giving herself permission to become someone completely different from Babs. She returned, met jazz musician Keith England while performing together in a cabaret act, and married him in 2000. built a high-end real estate career in Beverly Hills, wrote a book on election integrity, and produced political podcasts. In 2018, she reprised Babs in a Netflix film 40 years later. As of 2026, Martha Smith is 73 years old and has lived 5 completely different lives since that one forgotten audition changed everything. John Vernon as Dean Vernon Wormer. He had spent 30 years mastering Shakespeare on the most serious stages in the world, and then walked onto a comedy set and delivered the single most quoted line in American comedy history. "Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son." Born on February 24, 1932 in Zenner, Saskatchewan, Canada, John Vernon was a classically trained stage actor who carried decades of real dramatic weight and absolute unshakable authority onto a set that was running on pure chaos and improvisation. He was 45 years old, formally trained, completely immovable, and the only person in any room on that production who could make even John Belushi look like the reasonable one. What gave every single confrontation between Wormer and the Deltas its real crackling electricity was something John Landis had engineered deliberately and precisely from the very first day of production. He separated the Delta actors from the Omega actors completely. The Deltas living together in a chaotic, rundown house with no rules and no restrictions, building a genuine bond that deepened every single day they spent together. The Omega actors were placed in a clean hotel with room service and total isolation from all of it. By the time cameras finally rolled, the resentment between the two groups was not performed or directed. It was completely real, raw, and baked in through weeks of deliberate separation that Landis had planned from the beginning. Vernon's commanding natural authority fed directly into that genuine tension and made every scene feel like something that could actually explode beyond the boundaries of the script at any second. After Animal House, he worked steadily in film and television for decades, always bringing that same immovable presence to everything he touched. On February 1st, 2005, John Vernon passed away from heart failure at 72 years old in Los Angeles. The man who told everyone exactly how not to go through life had gone through his own with complete dignity and remarkable craft.